Malone, question for Nick? Greg?
So, Nick, I don't want to say you're old, but you've been here a while. But so when you've been here this long, what do you concentrate on in the spring?
I think it's, especially in the spring, I think it's more the little things. Like you said, I've been here a good bit, so learning from people. I think starting with Colton McKivitz, watching him from a young age, definitely in the developmental squad, definitely helped me. And then as I've gone through Zach, Doug, Yates, Quay, and Wyatt, I think it's more the little things in spring that can help.
Does it feel any different because, I mean, it's your last one, but also because you're really pushing for a full-time starting job?
I don't see it that way. My mindset is I'm 100% all the time. It doesn't matter if coming off the bench as a backup tackle, big tight end, none of that really bothers me. I kind of think of it as full steam ahead.
Talk about your transition from a walk-on to a scholarship player, and what would your advice be to somebody that's trying to walk in your shoes?
I think one of the best advice is getting as many reps as possible because I didn't start playing at offensive line that much. It started at special teams. It went from tight end on field goal to shield on punt to backup tight end to backup tackle, and then now in the role of actually playing. And I think it's consistency is kind of the big word to use. Just keep going.
Sounds like you tried to find a role. I got to find a role on this team and figure out, and then once you get your foot in, build from there. So was that kind of your approach?
Yeah, kind of like that. Especially being able to play offensive line example is playing every position. Kind of if they need somebody to go in, you were right there, ready to step in. There was no split second thinking of who they need. Like I kind of just took that role and kind of put myself
Kind
in.
of create value for yourself, right?
Exactly, value anywhere I could be.
Yep.
As you're trying to find yourself, there are obviously up days and down days. Describe the difference between the two, and what's going through your mind on after you feel like you're moving up, and maybe they're not making any progress.
I think it's especially in the O line. We talk about being flatline. There's no bad days. There's no really great days. It's being like that word I said, consistent. And being an offensive lineman, you have your bad plays. You give up sacks. You point of attacks. But when you have those great blocks, it's a great feeling. So you kind of have to find that mixture of both and kind of not get too high and not get too low on yourself.
What's this line like without Zach and Doug? And can you guys be as good as you were without them?
I think we can be better, especially now. I think we've taken the steps, and where we're at now, we have a lot of experience coming back, but we'll definitely miss them for sure. Doug and Zach led the room, led by example, but I think kind of like I heard in a previous one, it's not a rebuild, it's a reload.
You guys have seemed to have taken that to heart a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard multiple guys repeat that phrase.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's it like blocking for Garrett Green? How does that make you better blocking for a quarterback that can maybe get out of trouble a little easier than others?
It's pretty cool. He can always fix our mistakes and we can fix his, and him being able to move kind of helps our situation, especially when we have to sell run. They think he's going to run it, and it makes our lives a lot easier when he can be more mobile.
Nick, you mentioned the spring is an important time for the little things. On an individual basis, what are some of those little things that you've kind of emphasized these last few weeks?
I think of mine, especially running off the ball. That was kind of one of the things I lacked in last year, was kind of at the point of attack, not running off the ball. And I think especially now we're running the ball pretty heavy, and I think, like I said, the little things, I was able to build upon that and do a little better, especially now in the spring, and it'll show in the fall.
Hey, Nick, you mentioned that shield on the punt team, right? Mm-hmm. You've been doing that for quite some time, right?
Yeah.
Why? That doesn't seem fun at all, right?
Yeah, it's not a pretty position, but like I said at the beginning, it's where my role. I wanted to play. It didn't matter if it was an offensive line, field goal. It didn't really matter to me. I just being on the field as much as possible and doing what I can do to help was kind of my big thing.
It was prior staff, but they told me that was like a volunteer thing. They could ask people to do it, but it didn't really matter unless you wanted to do it. Did you volunteer for that?
Yeah, it started early in the year last year. I wasn't on as much, but once it was before Pitt, I believe, but I kind of just took that role and kind of stepped in. They were like, you can do it, and I was like, I know I can, and I went in and did what they tell me.
Seems simple. It's probably not, right?
Oh.
Tell me about some of the adventures back there. If there's high moments, low moments, have you ever been hit with the ball? Have you ever whiffed? Just what do you remember? What would you like to forget about that experience?
It's seeing another grown man running full speed at you. It's not very fun, but with our schemes, we're kind of moving around, so they're not able to get a full rush on us. But some of the highlights, it's when you're in the back, you hear the thud of the kick. And some of those moments where you don't hear the thud and it's taken a while, it's like, what's happening? And especially that was at Oklahoma State with the rainy game. I'm waiting for Ollie, you hear the kick, and I didn't hear a kick, and I turn around and I see him chasing for the ball. So that was one of the crazy moments.
You've played left tackle, right tackle, pretty much everywhere in the offensive line. Does it help to concentrate at just right tackle, one stance, one set of plays, or has it been beneficial that you've played everywhere?
I think it's been beneficial to play it all, but I think being able to, especially this year, focus more on right tackle, it's a little bit more helpful. But I think in the grand scheme of things, like knowing what everybody has to do kind of helps my game as well.
For one other question here about moving from being a walk-on to a scholarship guy. Was there a person or somebody that you talked to or helped you along the way that kind of helped you understand, okay, this is what I got to do to get where I want to be?
I think Coach Moore and Coach Brown, we always had one-on-one meetings of like you said, being a walk-on, you're kind of not noticed yet. You got to work your way up and everything. And starting with those meetings at the beginning, it was kind of like, oh, you can keep going, you got this, whatever. And then as time went on, it's like you got a bigger role now. You got to step in, you got to do this, and expectations kind of changed during that. But I think it's the mindset of just the consistency piece that was with that.
So it was your coaches. It wasn't another player that you talked to? Or
It was players. Like, I never got the big thing about here, like walk-ons, you don't get treated as walk-ons. It was kind of everybody, like from, like I said, Zach, Dante, Yates, Quay was a big one with me. We kind of were in a role together, but it's kind of all for one, all for all.
I mean, the gold standard here was Rich Bram.
Yeah.
That's the name everybody. Did you ever have an opportunity to talk to him at all a little bit about how he?
He came every once in a while when Noah Braham was getting recruited. I talked to him every once in a while, and it's when I talked with him, it's kind of like the mindset piece of you got to think, you got to have that chip on your shoulder. Being from West Virginia, being from Morgantown, you have to kind of outdo everybody. So it's kind of the mindset of you got to go.
Like just like I belong. They overlook me. I'm going to prove them wrong. That type of thing.
Prove them wrong was the big thing. Yeah. Not just here, but
Anywhere.
exactly.
Was there any point early that you may have wanted to toss in the towel? Or
I wouldn't say toss in the towel, but to the previous question, that low time, and every football athlete has that low point, but giving up was never really an option. But it's kind of, you know where you're at, you can always build upon. You can never go low.
Nick, you talked about your advice for walk-ons. What advice would you give to, swing offensive linemen like your role last year? I think Nick Cray is going to be that guy this year. What's your advice for that role? We just have to be ready for.
I think it's just stay ready because you never know. I never thought I'd go in second or third drive of Penn State. I didn't think of like I was going to go in, but I think you just got to stay ready and be ready, and that goes through like the preparation and all that stuff that goes along with that.
Is that easier said than done?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So what goes into staying ready?
You just have to, and my role is kind of moving back and forth, like each side. So getting reps at right tackle, getting reps at left tackle. It's kind of just knowing what you have to do, what personnel. Like it goes back to, like I've said, the little things. You just had to pinpoint those little things, and it makes you stay ready.
I'm sure growing up, you were like the biggest guy.
Yeah.
And, you were pushing people around and all that on the field and the likes. All of a sudden you come here and everybody's your size. I mean, what was that like? What kind of awakening was that?
It was, so when I first got here, I was 260 pounds, and that doesn't get you very far at Division I level. So kind of working in the weight room, gaining weight, gaining muscle. It was just it was a big transition because like you said, you moving people around pretty easy in high school and all that kind of stuff. But here they're lifting too, they're getting stronger. So we talk about hand leverage and pad leverage, and that was kind of what I took to heart. And you have to work on those things.
I guess it makes you want to get better real fast.
Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah.
If I go back to the Shield just for a second, there's different guys. They're offensive linemen, bandits, defensive linemen, linebackers. So it's not like it's one position that plays it. What's the mental, physical recs or makeup for someone to do that?
I think it's all about trust because I'm working with Tyron Bradley right now, and kind of it's just knowing him on like a personal level as well. It kind of builds that trust up, and like we know what we have to do, and I think it all goes back to trust because if I don't trust him, I tell the coach, I'm like, I don't know if he can do this very well. And
then you mentioned a bad moment. What about a good moment?
good moment. Let's see. It's always those one plays where the gunners bully the guy into the returner and we get the ball back. Those are always the highlights.
How are you similar or different to Doug Nestor? More similar, different style playing tackle?
I think we're different in ways. He was obviously a little bigger than I was at that point, but I think mentality we were the same. We wanted to go out there and dominate and do our best like that.
Maybe Doug more of a little brawler, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I think
brawler type.
I think it's I could run a little better because I was a little more athletic in that kind of space and all that kind of things. But I think we're different in ways. Yeah,
But obviously, you can play the position different ways and still be effective, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Think positives and negatives of being a Morgantown kid playing in your, own hometown.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, I mean, I'm sure there are positives, but negatives too, that you don't get to go away. You're just wherever you always have been.
Yeah. So I'll start with negatives. It was I feel like there was always a lot of pressure per se, kind of coming out of Morgantown and coming straight here. I felt like there was always a lot of pressure on me trying to perform well and everything, but I always look at it as the positives, though, that I'm able to play in front of my family, in front of my friends, in front of my city where I'm from, and kind of put on for them and show them that I could do it.